Good evening. This is the March 15th meeting of the Dog Park Committee. Obviously, there is no one in the room who is going to be recording this meeting other than our TV recorder. And I think the first order of business is the minutes that Elise has prepared for us. And now, did we vote? I'm kind of at a loss on the February 22nd.
The February 22nd were voted 5-0 because
So we-
one person had come in after the vote,
Yeah.
but I had amended them before submitting them to the town clerk. So I just wanted to provide an updated
Okay,
copy.
so this is the updated copy.
Correct.
And since we already voted on the correction, we don't have to vote on that one. But
So
we
it's
do have to-
FYI.
Yeah, we do have to vote on the minutes of the first.
Correct.
Which we have. So if we could take a minute to look at those. Missing the second page.
3-1?
Yeah, that was probably somewhere. Oh, it's on the referral.
Yes. We're conserving trees tonight
Good.
because I was
Actually,
a little
we'll-
long-winded.
We'll need some in the park. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? And if there are not, could we have a motion to approve them?
A motion to approve?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the meeting of the first. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is voted. Then we have the minutes of the cost analysis subcommittee. Good job with that, Miss Secretary.
Thank
There's
you.
also, I can find the second and fourth pages. And this one we don't need a motion on because you're the only one who is there, so we only have one.
Right,
Right.
so-
Till
Right,
Howard
Howard's not
comes
here,
back, we
right.
don't need a motion on them, but
Okay.
we should give everybody a chance to read them.
This actually did represent the largest portion of my personal update from the cost analysis subcommittee update portion, so number 4 on the agenda.
And the suggestion by the professionals, if you could boil it down, is that we don't look for a specific cost analysis at this stage, right?
Essentially, that is my understanding,
Yeah.
that we focus on benefits of the site rather than specific monetary value, and that would evolve throughout the process because the potential detriment would be that if I said something would cost $60 and it cost $64
Yeah.
in large quantity, that could cause controversy. And that was a hypothetical, obviously.
And so, as I see it, they
Yes.
talk mainly about the engineering benefits of that site and the environmental benefits of that site.
Which are significant.
Yes, yeah.
As well as how it would be minimally intrusive to the neighborhood and community.
Right.
Okay, are there any comments you have? It won't be a vote on accepting these, but are there comments or questions?
And just to give you the visual aids that I referred to, those are the 2 color photocopies you have that represent Lemansky and Boyce Street that were prepared by Mr. Coyle. And I can explain whenever you'd like me to, Mr. Proudy,
Sure.
what the various markers indicate.
Go right ahead. It
Okay.
shows a good look at the number of houses and the fact that they're screened by that
Yeah.
elevation change.
So if we look at the Lemansky one and the track is directly in front of us, if we look to the left of the track, we see a large rectangular red rectangle, and it's divided with perhaps 2/3 at the top and 1/3 at the bottom. That was a very, very, very rough projection of the 10,000, 20,000 square foot allocation. And that is, again, totally a fluid number for purely conversation purposes. And then in the upper right-hand corner of that diagram, that would reflect the approximate 13,000 square foot segment for the relocation of the Petroleum Lucas Skate Park. And transitioning briefly to Boyce Street, we see the area that would be required to be cleared on the left side, directly under the number 134, and that reflects about a half an acre that would need to be cleared. And then in the rear, we see the area that would need to be filled, and we see the reverse capital L that would reflect a very rough parking lot, driveway, entryway, and parking lot with the accessible parking on the left side of that lot. If that
Yeah, no, I
helps
get
at
it.
all. And what we don't have a good picture of on the Boyce Street, but the engineers were kind enough to pull up on Google Earth. From the overhead view is one, the narrowness of Boyce Street,
Yeah.
and two, the very, my word, problematic condition of the road. There's a lot of deterioration and potholes and some sinkage in the middle of the road.
And it's a really busy road anyway.
Mm.
Yeah.
With regards to traffic, there was a statement made that, now that you mentioned that, I didn't include, that stated that Boyce Street is believed to be busier than, what is the road that runs in front of the Auburn Police Department?
Oxford.
Oxford Street.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I do not have the specific traffic number data, but they said that could be projected.
And the fact that Boy Street is a little bit windier than Oxford Street North makes it more of a hazard as well.
Absolutely. And again, just going back, I'm sorry, on the Lemansky, what the yellow line that intersects on the lower 1/3 of the rectangle, that is the piece that would require the overhead power easement
Oh, okay.
from
Oh.
National Grid, because that reflects the presence of a power line. And per the engineer, that's mostly a legal process, and it is considered routine.
Okay. Cool. Going back to your minutes on that meeting. Thank you for doing these, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
The question on water.
Yes, that was one of the longer discussions
Yeah.
that occurred.
Now, it says that they recommended someone reach out to the Stanton Foundation to get more definition. Did someone do that?
I did not.
Okay.
And the reason I did not was because it's my understanding, Jim, you had reached out to someone from Stanton, right?
Yes, I am.
I just, and this is my opinion, pending communication from the committee, I felt it seemed more streamlined and professional for the same person to reach out,
Okay.
rather than, me to call and say, hey, I'm on this committee with Jim, and,
Right.
That's fair. Before we reach out to them, I just want to state that from all the research I've done, patrons want to see the water inside the bounds of the park, inside the bounds of the fencing of the park.
Yeah.
They don't want to have to go outside to get their water. They want it to be inside where their dogs are and where they are. I mean, what the foundation will cover is a completely different question.
absolutely.
But that's what people in general want to see.
And I noted that in
Yeah.
the study that you
Yeah.
had provided. I think really the conversation that occurred at the subcommittee meeting focused largely around what is attainable, what is feasible, and what is preferred.
Sure.
In the sense that from the wells, it's the no more than 25 humans, no
Yeah.
more than 120 days per year.
Right.
And then the issue became, well, how do we measure that? How do we know how do we know that? So it almost seemed more prudent to lay the water line,
Yeah.
which,
And at the same time, Corrigan Arena has lots of water, and they're right there. I mean, there's got to be some sort of access, and there's houses right there as well.
yes,
There's got to be some sort of access that can go in there.
there absolutely is access that could be laid, that could be placed. The only detriment would be cost. And Ms. Hoyle had indicated that should it be the committee's desire to recommend water for dog and human consumption, that in cooperation with the water department in town, they might be able to, they would be able to project a price to lay
Yeah.
water pipe,
With the
because that's a common cost.
And with the concern with the possibility of kids going near the fountain,
Yes.
if we
Yes,
have one
yeah.
inside the park and then one outside the park, like near the playground, that would help with that as well. I mean, if they're going to be putting in a water fountain anyway, why not put one near the playground or near the track?
That would make
Yeah.
good sense.
That could be part of our recommendation from a risk management
Right.
perspective. Would it be,
I get that it's not really covered by us here, but like that's, it would, putting one, if they're going to put one in the park, in the dog park, I can see people complaining that there's one for the dogs and then
No.
nothing for the kids.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I would recommend putting one near the playground as well.
and again, I know nothing about construction, so this might be a stupid question, but in order to put in water pipe,
Right.
that would involve digging up the parking lot potentially,
Yeah.
which Mr. Coyle notated would need to occur in the foreseeable future because of the condition of the parking lot, and that there would be some destruction of the parking lot for one section of the dog park.
Yeah.
Because this, again, very rough map does come into the existing parking spaces, which was not a configuration that had been previously
Yeah.
discussed, to my knowledge.
Right. Yeah, the one that we suggested became an L, like right
Yes.
next to the parking lot,
Right.
slightly over the path for where the basketball, up to the basketball courts.
And the thought process was to try to keep it as far from homes as possible,
That's fair.
one, and two, that it was better to have the entire dog park within line of sight.
Yep.
So dog owners could better monitor the environment within.
That's fair. But
And
yes, I do.
As an
believe
emergency, there are toilet facilities and water available at the baseball field. And there are signs throughout the park that will say that there are toilet facilities at the ball field, at the Little League ball field.
Couple of questions.
I'll try.
When you spoke with them, I mean, I saw that it didn't look like Julie attended that meeting.
No, Julie did not.
Did it come up in conversation at all with respect to what cost information was presented, was not presented at the first go-around? I know when we looked last week, or the week before, when we dug up whatever presentation online, there was nothing specific around cost. Did that ever come out in conversation? Was Bill involved in that first go-around at all? Did Amy bring up anything about cost, saying that, we talked about this, we presented this type of thing?
That was, to my memory, that was not a topic that was
Either
discussed.
at the meeting that you had or the meeting that you and I had with the two of them that Julie was at.
I'm just reviewing in my mind. No, I do not believe so.
Here's where I'm going with this. I think this is great information, and it was really, getting more visibility into some things that we didn't really know about, and some data points that we just didn't have. So, the effort is definitely well worth it. The only concern that I have is in terms of, this cost analysis process. I've heard from, Julie, as well as, I forget her assistant's name, but I'd have to go back and look at my notes at home, that they were advocating for a little bit more of a detailed approach, okay? I don't care if we go detailed. Or we go with Mr. Coyle. To me, what I interpret this is a rough order of magnitude based on external data, right? It's not necessarily basing an estimate on, you know, what's there today. It's basing on external data points and surveying other parks and stuff that may not have an exact match in terms of topology, certainly moving a skate park and those types of things. And the reason why I asked about the attendance of the other folks is, what did we learn, if anything, from the Board of Selectmen in terms of what they were looking for, or what expectations may they have had with respect to a cost analysis, right? And what I get at is, it's always good to be aligned with your stakeholders, and I think it would be a worthwhile, I don't think it stops us with doing some of the things that's been called out here, but I think it's a worthwhile exercise to, you know, reach out to the Board of Selectmen. I mean, I've sent an email on this morning to Julie, I haven't got a response to her, is, you know, what are the expectations, right? So that when we go in there, I guess I would want to know that we're going to hit the mark. We know exactly what they're looking for, as opposed to, okay, this is good cost information, good trending information, thanks for telling me about what's going on with other towns, but what I need to understand in order to approve something is what's going on in my town. You know, what is the cost of the project going to be for my town? And then we find ourselves having to go back to the drawing board a little bit. So I think it would be prudent of us to, you know, continue to move forward with, there's certainly, you know, I see value in getting some of the supporting information with respect to other towns, but I think it's also been prudent to see if we can get a confirmation from either the town manager and or the Board of Selectmen as to what the expectations of a cost analysis are, and whatever they say, this is what I'm looking for, then that really much, you know, checks the box that we've got the right approach going forward. I'm just sensing that the board, you know, based on what was shown in the first deck, that they don't have no cost analysis or cost data whatsoever was shared with them.
I don't agree with that.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just going by what was in the deck. Maybe it was discussed. I haven't gone through, you know, the 4-hour tape of the meeting. And maybe that's something we can just, again, go back to Julie and Amy about and say, what was discussed? Did you show anything? Type of thing.
I feel like we're going down a couple of different paths here, to be very honest, and I don't mean to interrupt, but if I don't say it, I'll forget my train of thought. I think your points are very valid and well taken. But with regards to process, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, which I very well may be, is that this is our body to do the work as we choose to. And we have our subcommittees with our tasks, and that the appropriate communication is as a committee. And if you're reaching out to other folks, how are we supposed to understand as a group what's occurring?
I don't think I'm following you.
Okay.
I guess at the end of the day, there's a purpose of why a committee is being formed, right? Committees just don't kind of, you know, spring up out of for no reason. There's a scope and there's a purpose around it. And all I'm advocating is that we ask for a little bit more clarity on what that scope is around cost analysis, so that we increase our probability that we're going to deliver something that's aligns with what they're expecting. I have to think that we've done all kinds of town projects within the community of Auburn. There can't be, you know, new ground. So we should be able to leverage that data of what other people have done, how much information, is a rough order of magnitude going to be enough, or is it not? And if they say it is, then great. Well, then we go ahead and do that. I also have challenges where I'm seeing that we're getting different direction. Now, I know what was said based on the meeting minutes that you just brought to us, but I also got, you know, different kind of, you know, different impression from my conversation through email with Julie, as well as a phone discussion that I had with her assistant in her office, that led me to believe that more detail was needed. Again, I don't care either which way we go, but I would prefer that we make sure that whatever we do is aligned with what the goals of this Board of Selectmen is looking for, so that we don't end up running the risk of losing time. Because if we go ahead and we produce something that's not what they want, and they say, well, that's not enough, come back to us in 30 days or 60 days, well, now the whole process just shifted down there. All I'm saying is just make a phone call.
I hear what you're saying, Jim, but I just need to, I guess from my perspective, throw something out there. That having served on committees, it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the proper decorum is for individuals who are communicating with town professionals and town administration, is for that chain of communication to occur through the chair. And for each of us to be reaching out individually to various individuals, the manner in which we are obtaining data is not streamlined. And a meeting was held with the professionals, which I attended along with Howard, and I'm so sorry you weren't there because I found it to be very productive and informative with the town engineer and assistant engineer, and the animal control officer acting as employees of the town administration. So I just feel like maybe we need to align, to use your language, on how we should be communicating with others. Am I out of line to say that through the chair is proper protocol?
I don't think so, but I think we got the answer to that. At least I felt we came away from the meeting that Julie was at with both engineers and the animal control officer. We came away agreed with their presentation, which was that we should not, at this point, be looking for too much detail as far as cost was concerned.
With regards to monetary
Yeah,
value?
they were saying at this point, before we've done
So
the draft looking for.
Just for a point of clarification, is this a different meeting? We're not talking
No,
about the
no,
one?
this is the meeting that we had, that you knew that we were having with the town manager and the engineers.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
No,
This is
it's not,
meeting-
it's not the one that.
Okay, that's what I want to understand.
No, it's not the one that Elise and Howard were at. But they were very clear that they thought that right now, the prices of items would fluctuate enough so that whatever figure they gave us now probably wouldn't be good 6 months from now when the actual, or a year from now when the actual work was going to be done. So they advised us not to look for more detail, and they were very specific in saying that, not to look for the detail and the cost, that it probably wasn't a job that we were intended to do or were equipped to do.
Qualified.
That eventually they would be equipped to do it, but not until a site had been decided and they could do more than preliminary engineering at that point. But and finally we know that there has to be a second plan after the draft plan. That's the construction plan, and that will be the time and the place to provide those figures, and that probably will be the engineers, the town engineers, that provide them, because they will certainly have the best set of figures in terms of the people in the community that would be involved in this.
Okay, so based on what you just said, none of us saw any minutes from the meeting that you guys had. I don't know, from an
No.
open meeting standard, you're supposed to have one, so, you know.
Yeah.
No,
So that's fine. If you're saying that Julie indicated to you guys at that meeting that
Yeah.
they were all in alignment with Bill and yourself as to what the desired outcome is, then I'll defer to that as being the basis of which, you know,
yeah.
to drop my concern.
And that was a good word, you defer to, because I'm sure that's what she was saying to us. We should defer to the two engineers who were giving us the advice that day. In fact, she,
Okay.
you know,
I
put
mean,
most
we all
of the
have our
questions through, yeah.
expertise, and I understand that you have, or you seem to have, far more knowledge in this area than I
But
do.
it's not even that though. At least my biggest thing is I've seen in projects of all sizes, of all different types, is that if you don't have alignment with the people who are going to approve it, then you're potentially wasting a lot of time, a lot of resources, and you're going around in circles. And because, you know, some things seemed a little bit vague, I saw data points that weren't aligning across different sources. That made me a little concerned that we weren't necessarily chasing the right mark, or it could come back to haunt us. That said, I'm hearing that you guys have gotten that data point, and we've got, a path here, so I'll change my question to now be, based on what you learned, what do you think is the steps that are needed in order to get us to end of job? How soon do you think we can get it? What are we going to do to rally around that effort?
To answer your question in 3 parts. One, I feel like from the cost analysis point, the barrier was to come back to the larger body and process the issue of water. What are our thoughts with regards to moving forward? Looking at macro perspective from cost analysis, I was given direction from the engineers to get comparative data from other communities, and I indicated to them I would do that. So whether it ultimately be included in our presentation to the Board of Selectmen or not, I think I might feel more comfortable having the information, and if we don't use it, we don't use it. But again, looking at the big picture, I think we need a report from the community outreach folks with regards to abutter issues and preparation of pamphlet, which I anticipate will occur this evening. And our next step forward would be the public dialogue meeting, which the Board of Selectmen specifically requested we have, according to Julie. And she clarified that that was to be a meeting where there was not dialogue, where essentially we listen to the community's concerns, but that we are not agents of the town, and that the Board of Selectmen will ultimately be having the open hearing, and at that point they would respond to the community members based on the information or data we provide the Board of Selectmen with. So essentially we're the intermediary, so to speak. So the next hurdle would be planning the meeting, and simultaneous to that, getting one step ahead, would be getting on the agenda at the Board of Selectmen meeting, and then all of us organizing, aligning, and executing our presentation. Those would be the big steps. Tell me what you agree with, disagree with, or think needs to be added.
I mean, if you tell me the big steps are, let's go out and move forward with our outreach plan. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Right? And as long, I mean, the only suggestion, you mentioned, the source that you came across today, and I guess the only suggestion I would have is that, anything that we can pull from a third-party standpoint that has some sort of, validity to its existence, that helps kind of build the argument for the, why it's a good thing.
Yeah.
As well as also enables us to speak intellectually about what concerns people will bring up. I'm sure the concerns aren't going to be ones that haven't come up in the past from other dog park projects, as long as we kind of have what we would say to those types of potential objections, so that we can help educate folks.
Of course.
Then that would be, then just rock on. I mean, send out whatever you got to send out to the abutters so we can start that process. On our side, it's just, I think what would be helpful is if we just kind of outlined, and do it on a quick and dirty whiteboard, what are the pieces of the puzzle that we have here? What are the follow-up items? What are things that we're going to summarize versus how we're going to present the information? Because, I mean, I can certainly extract some of the points from this, these minutes, but I don't necessarily know if that's all-inclusive of what we would show. So it feels like we have some more, kind of more tactical level, what does this mean, to figure some of this stuff out so that we can crunch it and put it in a couple of slides.
May I interject for one moment?
Go ahead, sure.
Kind of a random thought I had, given what I felt was a lot of information
Yeah.
in these pages, was perhaps some type of a graph or grid that detailed the benefits as, using the language that the engineer suggested in our presentation, in his presentation, which were the benefits and challenges of Lemansky versus Boyce, that perhaps some type of a grid could be constructed that bulleted the benefits and bulleted challenges, just to really provide an abbreviated source of information for the Board of Selectmen, who may or may not watch all of the meetings, read all of the minutes, etc., but to help them in making their decision. And as well as to perhaps in one of the slides do an overview of what steps this body has undertaken to demonstrate due diligence and thoroughness. What are your thoughts?
I think the benefits and challenges are fine. I think maybe another thing that we might want to consider as part of like kind of a graphical depiction is, you know, we break out, you know, whatever the 6 to 10 major categories, you know, design elements of a dog park, if that's possible, and it's all going to be based on what do we discover. Well, I guess here's a question for the group. Do we want to show that we talked to 5, you know, dog parks within the Massachusetts area and they came back and gave us one number? It costs X. We think that's enough. Or do we want to say, you know, could you give us maybe, you know, the next level of detail that says you spent roughly X on 5, not getting into, you know, exact quantities or qualities, but we spent, you know, X number on fencing, X money on infrastructure, X money on a surface, you know, and maybe the 5 or 6, 7 big buckets that maybe align to what the Stanton Foundation grant calls out. You know, how do we want to go about that? Again, you can spin data a whole lot of different ways. It's all about what we think is the right amount.
Okay.
Do we give something like dimensions, for
Sounds
instance?
to me that we're not like looking at dollar figures. at this
No,
point.
at this
I
point,
feel like
the
we're
engineers
on a
advised us
different
not
path.
to.
Whereas you are looking at dollar numbers, we're not looking at, or they're not looking at dollar numbers. And I think that basically what it is the board wants to know why we want this spot.
Yeah,
What it comes down to is why we want this spot and what are the challenges for it. And
I think that the
Well,
problem
you know.
comes from the original
yeah.
formation of the group said pick a spot and do cost analysis.
Right.
So if they've changed that now, then that's fine. I think that that's just
That was
what
the original
that was
request.
the original request.
Was they did want a dollar
Yes.
figure. So now they're saying they don't want a dollar figure. So we don't want dollar
Well,
figures.
May I clarify?
Yeah, I wanted to see. You just
to what
based-
extent?
The way I guess the way I interpret it is go out and talk to 5 or 6 parks and get some sort of broad stroke, you know, collection of what the costs were. You know, and then the example I just threw out to you is, do you want to just get one liner? So it was Grafton, you know, Millbury, Holden, for example. It costs X, it costs Y, it costs Z, and we just plot that, you know, on one slide, right? Or you go one step down below if you can get the data. We don't know what we can get because we haven't talked to anybody yet. Here's your total for Auburn, you know, the 3 or 4 towns. Okay, well the next, you know, 6 big buckets, you know, and they roughly ran in this range and run those across. The only thing we would have to add is that we also are trying to move something, which we don't know, and we're incurring costs for that, which we don't know if any of the other parks have had to go ahead and kind of have that inclusive to their dog park creation. So that might have to be a separate, you know, kind of bucket number on a chart. If we don't think that's needed, then that's okay.
Can I rewind for 1 second?
Sure.
I do that an awful lot. I think, just to clarify the issue of the board's cost analysis.
Right.
That was, we were told, pick a preferred site and conduct a cost analysis.
Right.
But, like those problems on the SATs, we weren't told how to do the work.
Yeah.
And it seems like each of us has a different definition
Absolutely.
of what a cost
Right.
analysis
It's a
means.
wide open
So what do
word.
they want?
And I think, but you know, that is what we don't know, and I suspect we're not going to be told by
So this is
those
an SAT test.
who
This is a test.
requested it. Okay,
Yeah.
having said that,
Okay.
okay.
on both ends of the continuum, we have the highly detailed, per blade of grass, the cost is.
Right.
Or we have the
Rough order of magnitude.
exactly. And the understanding that I take away from the meeting with the town manager and then the subsequent meeting with the engineers and the animal control officer is macro,
Okay.
not micro.
Okay.
Which is what are the factors? What are the factors that will contribute to the cost? But I hear you. There's power in data with regards to persuasion. So I think it could be helpful to have potentially comparative data from other communities, should it be required.
I think it's helpful from the standpoint is it gives some box. It's not an exact box, but it gives some box of what the potential is without us necessarily getting down to the granular detail of what our own Auburn box would be, right? So if we go out there and say, well, it's, you know, we think it's going to be between this range and this range, and they say, well, why is that? What can you show me? Well, we obviously know that we don't have all the double the details of what we're talking about, because there's a lot of things in flight, measurements, and a design document that doesn't exist right now that would be really the basis for why, you know, how you would do the cost. But that said, we know that, you know, what other dog parks have done is not going to be all that different than what we're asking for. And based on us going out to six in the community, here's what we've seen, what they've cost. Here's the size of those parks. I think size is probably a big thing, because that's something that, you know, that people can kind of, you know, at least have some sort of comparative sense to. And then if we want to throw in 3 or 4 other, you know, pieces, but I see it's one slide. Communities going across, 5 or 6 categories going down the other side, fill in the blanks, and now what you've got is a picture that says roughly 5 or 6 parks that we've talked to in Massachusetts. To get a dog park that was around roughly 30,000 square feet, it's going to cost you $200 grand.
And what would you suggest those categories be?
I think that we just align, if we can. I mean, again, we may have to change the game, because once we go ahead, an apple may not be an apple when we go ahead and talk to the town of Grafton, for instance.
And that's one of the things I noted when I looked at the preliminary data that Nicole obtained from the questions, that there were a lot of variation.
So another thing, you know, I mean, there's different. There's a couple ways you can attack it. I mean, we could just say, okay, can you, you know, instead of necessarily get it down to, exact, a constant data point across each one, because we may not be available. What we could say is, okay, give us a sense of what your total cost was. Okay, boom, they should all have that by now, because it's now after the fact. And the second, the next group we might buy, can you tell us what your top 4 most expensive items were? And not even put any, dollars against them, just list them out, so that we can make, then all of a sudden you'd see a trend going across 5 or 6 parks that say, fencing, oh, that's a big one, or, water, that's a big one.
Expensive, yeah.
Fencing is obviously the most expensive, but
Well-
we have the numbers. We have, I think, the numbers that we need are very close, because the numbers are provided by Stanton. Stanton says
This is
the
what
average
the
dog park is 200,000 to 250,000, and we will ask you to put 10% toward that, and we have a group that has offered to raise the 10%. I don't think, and beyond that, we have the potential of 2 engineering groups, because we have town engineers who would be doing the engineering work to provide our request to Stanton for a grant,
Right.
but Stanton would prefer that we have an engineering firm that has already done dog parks in this state, and that we choose one of those. They will, if it comes to that, it will be that engineering firm who recommends what we would need, given the area that we're working with, given its location and what it requires. I mean, this location, if we chose the Lemansky, is going to be cheaper
Significantly.
than Boy Street. regardless of what public opinion was, regardless of whether you had neighbors for it or against it, there will be a price for Lemansky, which our engineers say will be somewhat less than Boy Street. Mainly because of the slope and because of the screening that's there already, because of that monstrous hill behind this that will block off a lot of those homes. So that, we could almost give them today, yes, this will be the price of the dog park, but we can't tell you because we're not engineers, and you've got your engineers, and they're gonna ask that a grant be approved, and if a grant is approved, then the grant givers will say, but we would like you to use Joe Jones from Springfield because they have done 20 lovely dog parks. And then Joe Jones will decide what will need to go on that site to make it amenable for dogs and humans alike. But things like water, we know we probably will need water, and some, maybe both those engineering firms will have to provide it, but they will have to go to Auburn Water District and say, what will it cost to bring water here if that's what is decided? So I don't know that we have to, we can only make mistakes, I think, if we get too detailed with the numbers. We can only come in with something that's lower and in the long run be penalized because we did.
If rather than, I'm just trying to, I guess, see how we could meet in the middle. If rather than focus on numbers, how would we feel about getting a small sampling, not a longitudinal study of all dog parks in the state, a small sampling of similar communities with dog parks, requesting the total cost in the most expensive areas, but what they are, but focusing on the subject matter and not the dollar amount.
I think the only purpose of, I think you have to give some total cost number just to give people a sense of what we're talking about.
So here's my idea.
I mean, I think the benefit of challenges is all you need at that point.
So the Stanton Foundation gave us, this is an average of a cost of a dog park. Why not get the average of the cost of the dog parks in the area?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Just not even say
Did you do
that.
that, Sarah?
No, I didn't. Nicole
No,
did.
did Nicole do that?
I'm not
Did
sure.
she have prices? I think
But I'm not
she had
saying
some.
get the cost of Grafton and get the cost of whatever other ones are in the area.
Yes.
But I'm saying, but take 5, 6 of them in the area, average them all together, say this is the average. This one number is the average cost of parks in the area.
Yep.
That's the only number I think we need.
I think that's a great idea because I did review the questions Nicole asked in anticipation of what questions would we want to ask if we made the decision to poll other parks as the engineers had suggested. And some of the parks were crazy high-end,
Right.
private, luxurious, like I'd
Yeah.
go hang out there.
Right.
But they were, mid 300s, whereas some were low 100s.
Right, which is why I say if we average it all, it would hopefully meet in the middle, and
Okay.
then that would, because that's kind of the area we live in.
Yeah.
It's
I
sort of
think
a
to your point, we try to
median number,
find,
yeah.
based on, somewhat comparable towns to Auburn, as best we can. I'm just gonna, we come up with what the dollars are, best we can. Because I think, the only thing I think was important about dollars is, I think you also need to show how this is gonna get funded, right? I don't think it really called out, the whole 10% of this, 10%, because if I'm a person who's sensitive to potential paying taxes, right? And I'm on a butter, right? And I'm looking for, for things that might concern me besides just being a butter. I'd be like, well, what's the total cost of Auburn? So if you could roughly say that, okay, we looked at 4 or 5 parks, the cost was 250,000. If you kind of reverse engineer the math based on what's, they would do, what they do, what Stanton would provide, well, now you're looking at maybe a delta of like 20 grand, 25 grand. We know we've got a commitment from, the nonprofit group, the Fur Friends, so our exposure is 4 or 5 grand, okay? I think if you kind of tell that type of high-level story, then that can help put people at rest that are thinking, oh my God, $200,000, who's paying for this? We're gonna pay for that, how much taxes is it gonna, bring up? So I think if you just, a slide to tell the story of, here's how the Stanton grant works, right? A slide that talks about the benefits and challenges based on, what we've learned. And then a slide that tells about, some high level, cost comparatives based on things there. That's your story. The only thing I would then ask the group, first off, does everyone, feel what I just said is
I don't think
reasonable?
anyone disagrees with you.
Okay.
No, I don't think any good.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
that's so
that
far.
while it's
So,
not
absolutely.
our decision, a decision will be made sometime on whether there's a fee for the use of this.
Right.
Correct.
Whether it's a yearly fee or something attached to licenses, but that's not part of our decision.
Right.
So
Right.
while
be
that will
offset.
ameliorate or offset the cost to the town, it's beyond the scope of this committee to decide that.
And yeah, no, I don't think anyone disagrees with you that's what we need. We're just saying that I think that the number we should go off should be just an average of the local parks in the area that are about, maybe from towns that are about this size, or
I was gonna
This
say that.
income bracket, things like that.
I completely agree with you,
Yeah.
Sarah. I become, certainly, I empathize with folks who are sensitive to cost
Yeah.
and tax increase and potential impact on their neighborhood. But I worry about putting a number on it because of the potential for providing data that's fluid.
Yeah, so Dave, that's what?
Fluid, changeable.
I think you just, first off, right, so we'll all get recorded, so anything, all these potential angles, decisions, possibilities, go play the tape, you're gonna hear the story,
Okay.
the thing.
It's the beauty of open meetings
Right.
and democracy.
Right. So, I think if we were just to put, a disclaimer that says, this is what it is. It is a rough order of magnitude based on an external data set, a little star at the bottom of whatever the chart that says, as the design, process unwinds and they get more details around what thing it's going to really take, then at that point, a more mature cost estimate would be available. That's all to me, that's all we need to say, because that to me is saying, you know what? We're giving you a range based on what data we have available. We're not committing 100% to it, but in order to get to the grant and get the approval, they're going to have to get to that point. So I don't know, maybe the Board of Selectmen comes back and says, okay, we say, let's go proceed with getting the design work done in the town, and then come back to us with what it's going to cost, but before you go out and try to submit something. And then again, they're just playing something they could throw out at us. But at that point, we're out of business in terms of our committee, and that should be turned over to the town at that point to go off and chase that.
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And absolutely, the Board of Selectmen could say anything. That is the power that they have in our community. I would expect what they would say is directing the town professionals to proceed with grant application or not, then pending result, they would either accept the funding from the Stanton grant for design phase or decline it. That would be my understanding. Is that correct, Mr. Perry?
Usually, Ron, would you, someone coming that needs to shut the sound down?
Mhm.
If you're on like right angle,
Sneak right in.
they gotta go play finance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get some money for the dog park committee while you're there.
Absolutely. Get us funded. So, to take this discussion, I guess, into concrete terms,
We need to talk to dog parks. We know what data we need. I sound like you.
And we
We know what data we
uh,
need. Now, how are we gonna get it?
Yeah,
I
we've
mean,
got that list
believe me,
of,
I wish I did sound like me. I wish we didn't have to live in a data-driven world, but that's where all companies are, and if they're not there, they're gonna get there.
I'm a therapist. We don't need data. We live in the world of feelings.
certainly not global data.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, to focus. Data. Who's getting it? We know what we're getting.
Yeah.
Who's getting it? I think I might have volunteered myself unknowingly.
Well, it's okay because you also volunteered him to Jim to call the foundation again. So
I tasked you, sorry.
There you go.
so you're okay with doing that? Asking them about
Yeah.
the specification about water.
But we don't even need
And-
that.
and
That's a
maybe-
moot point, isn't it?
To pin that down even more, Jim, maybe it's, does that need to show in our initial plan to them? Or is that one of the details that the dog park engineers come up with? Us can't do that. Sorry.
I think it's the latter.
My bad. I didn't know. I'm
It was just-
violating
it
the
was
It's an
rules.
open meeting.
God, I'm gonna get us all
Closing the
fined
door.
by the AG. The Laura Healy's gonna sweep in here and fine us.
You're in big trouble.
I think this notifying the Stanton, calling Stanton might even be a moot point. Because Amy had suggested to clarify if water needed to be
Right.
within the dog park
Right.
per grant application, or if it could be within the recreational complex. And then Sarah, you started the discussion by saying you felt
Yes.
the research supported it should be within, and we
Yes.
all agreed.
Yes.
We all agreed. The only problem there is the one that was mentioned in the material that you sent us,
Yes.
that you don't want kids who
Coming in.
suddenly on Thursday coming into
Right.
the middle of the dog park to get a
Get-
drink.
Right, and that's why I suggested
Yeah.
also put one when they build it, when they add water, also put one near the playground.
And it will definitely have to come from the Auburn Water District,
Yes.
because we know from our engineers that there is a limit of 25 people for 120 days
For the lovely
worth
well
of
water.
water
And
in
that's
the wells.
so I think that's why we need to find out if it's a requirement that it be in the park. Because if it is a requirement that it be in the park, that would be better for everybody. Then we'd have then we could put forth the argument that yes, it needs to be in the park. And while you're doing that, you might as well put one here too.
Sheer brilliance. Brilliance. You want to call Stanton, Jim?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, can we go to outreach?
Yes. Nicole's not here. And she said that she was working on making some final touches, but we haven't received anything from her. I want to go through further that study and other things and just pull out specific points that are relevant to outreach and are also
Right.
relevant to the financial side as well, and building it and engineering, etc., and just pull out specific things. Go through all 130 pages of the report and pull out specific items that are relevant, and then add them to our flyer
Right.
and send them over to the other subcommittee as well. Before we go and set a date for the meeting, for the dialogue meeting, I want to have that flyer by Nicole done first.
Okay,
Of
then
course.
I
I
was
thought we
going to
would have
ask
that
you
today.
that.
Yeah, because
Do
I
you
thought we were
think
gonna.
we're
I thought that we
two
were gonna have that
meetings
tonight, too.
away from the,
So here's my
Yeah.
suggestion. I would like one more week.
okay.
Because I know we're kind of getting down to the wire at this point.
Mhm.
I would like the possibility, I don't know if it meshes with your schedules, to meet next week. And I'd like to have, if we had the flyer done by next week, then we can spend the following 2 weeks sending out flyers and posting them and letting people know of the dialogue meeting. Yeah, after 2 weeks after next week. So in 3 weeks from now. Does that make sense?
I like everything you just said except use of the word dialogue.
I know, but that's what you call it.
I know, but you know, sometimes the words I use are terrible. Let me get my
You
notes.
have lovely words.
You guys don't hear me outside of a meeting.
Expressive words.
Whatever you want to call it. I don't care what you want to call it.
I'm actually
Can we get the
looking
list?
back in my
And
notes.
we got the list of the butters that I sent you.
The words
didn't
suggested
put that
from
out.
the town administration, and I quote, public information meeting
I like it.
or
Okay.
community impact meeting for the suggested language. Because there's
Community
the
impact
no
sounds
dialogue.
dangerous.
That will probably get more interest.
It will, but it sounds more dangerous. It sounds like,
Yeah.
like deep
That's
impact,
okay.
like the asteroid.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you get two choices.
Let's go.
What was the
I
other
don't know that it will be so
What was the other one?
packed because there aren't many houses.
What was the other
Not
one?
that many butters.
Public
Public
information
information. Okay.
or community impact.
All right, we will. The three of us will go. We'll talk and we'll try to decide. Because without
And we
Nicole
were
here,
cautioned from using the words hearing at any point.
Yes.
never use hearing.
It's not a hearing.
Never hear.
And the public
Okay.
is not gonna vote. I mean, they can come and
Never hearing,
express
no
their
vote.
opinion.
Absolutely.
Can I serve treats? Can I bribe people to come, basically, with food?
Oh, we're gonna bring food.
Okay, yeah.
I don't bake. I-
But you don't
I
know, right? We can't do that, right?
No,
We
that's
can't bribe
so
people with food.
inappropriate.
No. Good
Well,
bribe.
they can't
Me,
even
I'm
use the
bribed.
word bribe, right?
I think for that meeting, as just a suggestion, I think we need to, and maybe you've already thought about this, we should have a picture of the map similar to what
Yeah.
she's
Yes.
printed
Yeah.
out.
Right.
Yeah.
You might also wanna, I don't know if does this really show? Yeah, I would guess maybe, we maybe do it in two, but get a real good
A real
picture
good
of where
picture
that,
of that
that piece
is-
is gonna be located.
So,
And I also think we need to come up with ground rules as a committee about that, you know, under your direction about how to proceed.
What we can say, what we should say.
We nod, we
Yeah.
actively listen.
Yep.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's
Active
for the
listening.
community to give
So-
input on this project to us.
So yeah, my original suggestion was, let's come back next week, a week from today, with the flyers. Get them approved by the entire committee, all 7 of us, hopefully all 7 of us can make it. Talk about any specific changes we want to make to the flyers, and any plans that we project up on the screen that we want to show people, any data, etc. We talk about all of that, make sure that we have it, so we have it next week. Next week we talk about it, we approve it. And then,
That's
We also-
not putting too much of a strain on you people, is
no,
it?
no. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
And then we talk about the things we can and can't do at the meeting, and schedule it and advertise it. Yeah? Are you all okay with meeting next week? I am.
Stand by.
Stand by.
Got it. I mean, I feel weird without
I have
Howard
no
Nicole
life, for
here.
God's
Right.
sakes. I'm not-
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, we want them to have, if we have a majority, we can have the
The
meeting.
dog's
Yeah, I
waiting
know.
for me.
Are you okay with next week?
I will make best efforts.
Yeah, I can do it.
Next
And then
meeting,
can I, using my
29th.
now famous word, rewind, to our piece, just about maybe how we should proceed over the next week, that I can agree to make the calls, and I have the time and the contacts. But if I get the data, I don't do graphs. I don't do that. I don't have that skill set.
You got it? All right.
Okay.
Great.
I just think,
Jim's like, I'm all in.
Oh my God.
He's like, I do graphs.
see, this is what I guess I'm done with the challenges of an open meeting, right? Because I think ideally, you know, if we could spin up a couple of slides, and we could iterate them on them, you know, and I don't know, maybe I'll throw this out as it's legal, so to speak. So, you know, if it's not 5 of us, and there's only a couple of us, 2 of us, and if we're spinning up some slides, you know, based on like, you know, some, you know, data points that are here, and we're sending them back and forth to say, all right, let's change this, you do that, you change that, so we get it to an editable state with the rest of the committee, are we breaking rules? As
You-
opposed to,
Not
Elise
if they're
and
not, it's
Howard
just
can do it.
one-on-one.
If it's one-on-one,
Yep.
one-on-one.
You, Elise, and Howard can do it.
Oh, I don't mean to contradict.
No,
No?
That
nope,
breaks the
no,
rule.
we can't have subcommittees anymore. We weren't supposed to have them to begin with.
Oh, really?
Subcommittees are supposed to have minutes.
I believe, Jim,
When did
And
that
everything.
happen?
if say
Um,
you developed
before
a
you-
PowerPoint slide, or I developed a PowerPoint
Great.
slide, I do know how to do that. And I put it in the Google Drive. You know how we can see each other's edits? If we're putting data,
So we have to
But
invite everyone
not-
to Applebee's.
Technically, we
discussing,
have minutes. We're all in a chat.
would that break a rule?
I'm not an open meeting scholar, so.
Well, I'm
so-
creatively
Yes
thought-
or
Now that,
Sarah,
Karen
We're
was-
done.
Missed it, I'm sorry.
Okay, so say I open a PowerPoint slide and I do a draft.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then I
you
put
it
the
into-
draft PowerPoint slide in Google Drive.
Yeah.
We
And
can all
Jim
look
looks
at
at
it
it
and edit
and he
it.
does not discuss it,
Yeah.
but
Well, we could do
he
that.
switches it and you know how you see the edits?
We
Yeah,
can track
right.
changes.
As
Right,
long as you're not, yeah.
right.
If you turn
Could
it
you
on,
send
if you
me a
can track
tutorial?
changes, yeah.
Well, either that, I mean, what could be an easy thing to do, right, is, you send me whatever you come up with, right? I go ahead and I start, track changes, to it. So at that point, when we get together, we probably gotta put it, this is where, at some point, I feel like you have to kinda get in a room and put it up on a board or something to kinda look at it, so that you can get through the iteration quicker, faster, and just get it done, as opposed to, waiting for an open meeting, that we don't get really, we're not having working sessions really in these open meetings, we're having more discussion
Yeah.
and that type of stuff. We need a working session to power, I don't,
I agree.
Well, could we invite Julie so she could get, no, or can we
I mean,
invite
we could.
someone to
We
come
could.
and
We
get
could
it
do
on
that.
the computer or email it to them so that we could get it on the,
I think we
site?
can, I think we
or
can
even-
get it up on
Yeah.
computer.
I believe
Or
Mr.
somehow.
Hedman has the passwords
Yeah.
to get us
So
up
as long
there.
as we can do that, we can do that next week. Right? And get
Yeah.
it finalized
so
for our
if
next,
we
can
have,
we do some finalizations?
we can throw some slides together and just have them to kinda edit here, so that
Yeah.
we're not talking about just, because weeks go by. If you do everything in the open meeting, wait for the next open meeting, weeks and months go by and you get nothing done.
Right.
Yep,
Okay,
that
so
works.
I will get data and I will send it to you for whatever magical powers you see
Just
fit.
throw it in that,
And
that
then I will
Excel sheet as a-
comment
as a
on the
different-
data, okay?
So you're gonna call X amount of,
A reasonable number, which,
And you
Between
can
4
pick
to
them right
6.
up here.
Right, that's great.
yeah, get
The ones
the
most like us in
Right.
size, or the ones most
Right.
like us in
Mhm.
proximity.
4 most expensive areas, that stuff.
yeah, okay,
Agreed?
that's fine.
And then I will provide you with that data.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure your PowerPoint slides would look better than mine. And,
Will you put that flyer in Google Drive?
start from there.
Oh, fine.
And how do we clarify that we have access to the technology in here?
Yeah, all you need is, I mean,
I do believe that.
I think he
Yeah.
has the
Yeah.
power.
We've done
He's
it
got the
before.
power.
As long as it's up on the cloud, we could get it.
Mhm.
I will pull out the relevant information from the study and from some other things that I found, send them to Nicole. She's already said that she still wanted to update the flyer a little bit. I'm volunteering her to continue to update the flyer
Mhm. Right.
and to make any, we can work one-on-one to make other relevant slides, FAQ flow slides, things like that.
I feel, and this is my personal opinion, that the fewer slides we have for the selectmen, the better.
I meant for the community
Oh.
impact public information meeting.
It completely.
I don't want to talk about the proposal just yet.
Awesome,
Yeah.
because I am still, and I do say still because it's 5 hours, going through those 2 meetings.
Yeah.
And writing down
Oh,
concerns.
yeah, I completely forgot I asked you to do that. Thank you.
However, I say this with all due respect to any selectman who may be listening. I can only handle about 30 minutes at a time, and then I just have to stop. So I'm working on it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Thank you.
So it's in progress. And the number slide is there. I just haven't found it. I believe it's in the second meeting. I'm still on the first.
So I just want one other thought. So we know we got an outreach, we know kind of what the costs are, right? We know that we picked a location, right? I just want to know, do we have any thoughts about what recommendations about what's included in the park, right? In terms of preferences, do we even, that we stay away from that? Like, for instance,
You want to stay
you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we're gonna let the town decide what at the end of the day, what they put into it, what they don't put into it.
I don't know that it's gonna be the town's decision. I mean, it's
Yeah,
more
it's-
along the Stanton, those guys have what they want. They want a
They
covered
do.
area. They have, you
Stanton,
know,
Yeah, there is-
as
to
I
follow
see,
that requirement. I'm sure that we'll be able to have our add-ins when we, you know,
yeah,
when we present, but I think that that's gonna be at a later meeting.
And I also think that's when the Fur Friends would step forward and
Yes.
say, so we might be willing to fund,
Right.
you know, those
I don't know where
bubbler
there.
thing, you know,
Yeah.
whatever the amenity is that would be lovely, that isn't funded by Stanton.
and we know that we have going for us the fact that Stanton lets you do supplemental grants for 3 years.
Yes.
So that if you forget something.
Or you run
that
into an issue.
Yeah, if you run into an
Mhm.
issue, if you need a considerable amount of money after the first year, they are apt to give you that.
Let's say let's say that the town picks just the natural grass cover that's there, and then it becomes ruined by a year of use, then we could apply for a better grass cover,
Yep.
a better ground cover.
And I also provided to the animal control officer, and maybe with your direction, I should have provided it to the town manager. But this was provided to me by a member of the Fur Friends. This is potentially up to $50,000 supplementary funding for a dog park through
Like,
called Pet Safe. So it's another significant funding
Okay.
source.
Okay.
And I did send it to Amy.
All right.
I love Pet Safe.
Could I ask
Their stuff.
that
You could
in
ask.
the Stanton packet, there's some language that I think, I know we're not talking about selectmen strategy.
Yeah.
But I think it might be helpful for us to think about strategy that essentially says if we are working in collaboration with a nonprofit, and I have absolutely no reason to believe this will occur, but should the nonprofit not maintain the dog park, that cost must be in writing committed to by the town.
Yes, yeah.
So I think the Fur Friends will be an amazing asset to the community.
Right.
But I just don't want that to come leaping out at us at the Board of Selectmen.
Yep.
So I think it's something we should give some deliberate thought to.
Oh, excuse me. It's fair.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a meeting scheduled for March 29th. We're hoping that we would have a meeting 2 weeks after that.
That would be off of our
We may-
schedule.
yeah.
That's off of us.
That's off our schedule, and we may want to be able to have that room, the bigger room.
Right, for
Because
the-
you see, there
yep.
aren't many
Yep.
people that will
That's fair.
fit in here.
Mhm.
So that, I suppose, is in flux.
It
now.
may, I mean, it probably won't be at the same time we
Yeah.
usually have our meeting. We'd have to find another day, 2 weeks
Yeah.
from next week, 3 weeks from now, that would fit that room.
Mhm.
But it probably won't be Wednesday at 6.
Yeah.
But if I'm understanding, we're going to see if there's a room available next Wednesday at 6. Our
Yes,
meeting.
for us.
For us,
Yes.
this one will be.
Even if it's in the
If
basement.
this one isn't, there is a room in the basement that
We're relegated to the
Say that every
basement.
meeting.
I know, but it used to be
So-
We can
a
meet in the
popular
basement.
meeting room. We'd
But,
like to
yeah,
do it at Coke Machine.
The public meeting, the more public than this meeting, because this meeting technically is public.
I shut the door. God, I'm gonna get a letter tomorrow.
Not entirely closed.
Thank you.
The open, not somebody.
You
to
will get
complete.
a letter. They'll
You
come
will.
right
They'll
away.
come
You're the
right-
chairman,
They'll
they're coming
come
for
right
you.
away. and
They'll come
I
from
don't
the
think it's too big a fine.
But yeah, we'll
for that
have to, and will
first offense.
the
First
chair
offense,
find a
1,000.
day for us to have that meeting? 3 weeks, sometime 3 weeks from now?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
well, I'll have to,
See if the basement's available.
well, we don't want that meeting, that's gonna, you're talking about that being the big meeting.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
Sometime
Yeah.
3 weeks. Obviously, it probably won't be Wednesday at 6, but sometime where that room is available.
To have the open
Well,
meeting. To, what,
yeah,
2 weeks
the
from next
open
week?
meeting, the public meeting probably would be better to be later.
Yeah,
Not
probably, so
later
people have
days, but
time
later.
to get out of work.
I think 7's
Probably
better for,
seven,
you
yeah.
know, working hour, traditional working hours.
Yes, get out of work, get
Get
dinner.
home, get dinner. Make
We also
sure
wanna
that
make
everyone
sure
has a chance to get home from
Yeah,
work and
there will
get
be
dinner,
no
and then
Okay,
I'm so sorry.
it's okay.
see what you did. Gave us hope,
I know I sound evil.
and now we have no hope. Oh, we have no hope for baked goods.
I know, I was so looking
I
forward to
was too.
refreshments.
I'll meet you in the car.
It's like every twice a month or once a month?
Oh Lord.
Twice a month unless there are 5 Mondays. And then there'll be 3
No,
times.
no meat, right? Okay.
I have another question for you, completely unrelated. Have you been able to find out if anyone from the Lucas family is still in Auburn?
No,
Okay.
no. You know what I would ask? Sometime for the meeting, your group see the Police Patrolmen's Association. 'Cause I've spoken only to the chief,
Yeah,
which, you know, is the authority.
right.
But I would think the Patrolmen's Association might be closer in feeling. Now,
Okay.
Thank you.
the Lucases.
I have 130 pages to go through.
Yeah.
I regret not liking that article.
Thank you.
We all have tasks, this is good.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
So next meeting, we should be able to utilize the technology, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that room have a screen?
There is a projector. I've seen the music.
I've seen,
Yeah,
you know
you've
what? I've
seen
seen
the
the
music?
music also.
I've seen the
I think it's
music,
next.
It is not as good
But it's not as good as
these
this.
Right,
two. It's
yeah.
just one
Yeah.
screen.
I'm just thinking ahead to the selectmen.
right.
Yeah.
Now, there also is the possibility of a town meeting, not for us, not that it affects us, but it might affect committee meetings. I do believe it would be the 28th, not the 29th, but I'm not positive. Anyways, if something comes that makes the 29th impossible, I will notify you all.
Okay.
So the 29th, we should have a public meeting, is that what I'm not
No,
hearing?
29th
29th
is
is next week.
next
Is
week
it
when we
next
get
week?
ready for the
Yeah.
public meeting.
Yeah, so next week on the 29th in the basement.
Next
No.
week is, next week is the 29th.
Yeah, that's the thing though.
They won't
Oh, it's not the
see
29th.
Next
What
week's
is
the
it?
22nd.
Can't be on
Oh, it's the
TV.
22nd.
So the 22nd is our group.
Oh,
22nd, not the
Okay,
29th.
that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So the 29th, you're right, is the public, is the.
That's
it's
not
the
ample,
follow-
that's
That's
not
not
ample
a
Not
time.
2 weeks. 20, yeah, the 29th is not 2 weeks from next week.
So 3 weeks from tonight.
Approximately, because we can't guarantee we get that room at, you know,
Right.
at the same time.
Right.
So we're saying the 22nd, and we'll have that.
22nd is next Wednesday.
Okay, let's just all say
29th
it
is
again
definitely
together.
not enough
So
time.
next week, the 22nd, 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Meeting
Is
Meeting
here.
our-
sometime.
And then
here.
in a perfect world, approximately 3 weeks from tonight, a public meeting.
So we're looking at the 5th of March.
And then to Jim's point.
I mean, 5th of April.
That would put us,
say.
to
5th of
Jim's
April.
previous point, that would put us on the selectman calendar when, Mr. Proudy? You hate me right now, I know.
I have no idea, because I have no idea when their
Well, I
meeting
can't
will
see
be.
anything.
I
It'll have
know.
to be at their
So let's
meeting.
give him a homework
It'll be a
assignment.
Monday.
Alright?
It will definitely be a Monday.
Let's find out what the dates are for the selectmen are in April, and, you know,
It should actually be on the town calendar.
okay, then the next question is, what do we gotta, how much notification do we gotta get to get on the,
I think just do it.
agenda?
You're right, but if we request it, are they gonna take us to the very next meeting or the meeting
That's,
after?
that's what I think we need to
Yeah.
find out. I don't know if they
Yeah.
have other, a long list of stuff in their backlog, or they got,
I don't think so, Jim. Their meetings generally are the second and fourth Mondays. But if there is a fifth, it might be on the fifth Monday.
so I guess in summary, what I'm hearing is next week we're aiming to lock down everything we need for a deck,
Right,
and everything we need to do an outreach meeting.
right,
And then it's about getting it on the calendar, and doing it.
yep, yeah.
I think that's an accurate summation.
So I would just say, you know, everybody probably bring some snacks, just in case we're here for
Yeah,
a
we're
while.
gonna be here more than an hour next week.
Yeah.
Baked goods?
For next week, yeah.
I'm being completely sarcastic.
We can have pizza delivered, I don't know, whatever. But,
That's fine.
Yeah, because we're gonna be here more than an hour next week.
Yeah.
To go through, yeah.
Probably.
It's a working meeting.
I mean, I
It's a
think,
working-
we can make it a little simple, I mean, if you're gonna make the calls, I'll call Stanton, you call, whatever towns you wanna use for a sample. You can take a swag at putting a benefit and challenges slide together, I can do the same on my end, too, some of it, and then we can just kinda compare and contrast. We might say that you wrote it more eloquently, one bullet more eloquent than me, vice versa, we decide.
right.
We chop them off, put them in. At that point, somebody else, might have another point that says, well, did you consider this? And then we change it right there, so that,
Right.
when we're done, we're done.
Yeah,
Put this in the Google document and we can all see it, so we all
Just,
know.
I mean, I would, I mean, depending on,
What do you think would be visually most effective?
well, if we can make it fit, I mean, I don't know how much there is yet. You can do 2 columns, benefit or strategies. For now, I wouldn't worry about that. I would just say maybe you do 1 slide, call it benefits. The next slide you call it challenges, and if you need 3 benefit slides and 2 challenges slides for now, let's do that. And then if we want to try to, once we see what it is and we've kind of wordsmithed everything a little bit and we can crunch it down to maybe comparative slides that says benefits and then things, then we can just do that next time.
I think you just gave me another homework assignment. Thank
No,
you.
no, it's
I'm
the same.
joking. That was a joke.
It's going to save you from sitting and worry about track changes. Just. I'm all about getting to end a job.
All right. Cool. We all have our assignments? Yeah, good.
We all have our assignments. And I will save copies of these for the folks who weren't here,
Thank you.
because I know it's expensive for the town to make the colored copies.
Is there anything else we can give Howard? Can give him a homework assignment? Send him a nice little email?
I mean, we gave Nicole assignments. Might as well give Howard
No,
assignments as well.
I mean, not for nothing. I mean, at least, if there's something else we can do to be more efficient, to kind of send him something to do.
He has been sent all of this, and he has hard copies of this, because he was at the meeting where these were
Right.
provided. But
Because I guess the third piece, another piece that might be, something that he could do,
More.
is just put some sort of like summary together what the Stanton Foundation's all about in terms of the money aspect of it.
would you like to be the bearer of
No, I
the
don't,
good
yeah, I mean,
news?
I don't think it's bad news.
I said good news.
Well,
I didn't say bad news. I said good news. We're being strength-based.
Oh,
Yeah.
it basically, this basically gets down to, how do we reverse engineer to say it's gonna be roughly about this? Should be 1 slide that basically talks about that.
And I will keep working on the selectmen thing. Okay, we all have our tasks. Gotcha.
Motion to end the meeting?
It's been moved that we adjourn.
I second that.
Oh, moved in second.
I thought it was a joke, but I'm
All
second that.
those in favor?
I'm on that.
Aye. Wait.